Hi guys, this is Connie in my car for some peace and quiet and the ability to read The Dogs of Winter. We are on chapter 35, titled House of Bones. There is a good possibility, because this is a very long chapter, that this will come in two parts, because it's just easier to upload that way from my phone. So here we go. Now that we were all stronger and the puppies had grown long legs, we explored the forest. Farther and farther we went into the wildest parts, the border lands. Here, the trails were not made by humans. There were no bottles or metal cans left to the side of the trails. There were no wide trails or straight trails. These trails, such as they were barely wide enough for my small boy feet placed toe to heel, one in front of the other. These trails wound in and out, back and forth, in secret ways known only to the animals that had made them. We followed these trails, Smoke always in the lead, me behind, and the rest of the dogs close. Smoke talked to me with his ears and tail. I watched which direction his ears swiveled. Were they thrown forward or were they relaxed? If he raised his tail high, something exciting was ahead. Perhaps a deer to chase, or a fox. We had seen many deer in this far border of the forest, and tracks in the damp earth of something much larger. But even the small dappled deer were too big and too fast for the dogs to kill, except in their dreams at night. Once they had tried, but all they managed was to catch in the end were empty stomachs. One gray day, thick with mist, the dogs and I came upon something altogether wonderful and mysterious and frightening deep in the borderland of the forest. The puppies found it. The pack and I had stopped to drink from a stream and investigate a large hole dug into a small hillside. I heard the puppies' yips and their growls of curiosity and argument on the other side of a huddle of boulders. We paid them little mind. They were puppies after all, always going on about something. Her head and tail held high, Girl Puppy trotted toward us with something big in her mouth. We all sat on our haunches and watched her until she dropped the big something in front of me. It was a long, curved bone. The bone still had bits of meat and tattered hide attached. I held it to my nose and sniffed. It smelled of damp earth and wet leaves and sweet rot. "Show me," I said to Girl Puppy. We followed her across the stream, behind the huddle of boulders, and into a stand of silver trees. There, Boy Puppy chewed with great satisfaction and concentration on a large hoof. The dogs and I gathered around for a better look. "It was a big animal," I said, surveying the length of the skeleton, "and maybe not dead long." The dogs looked from me to the skeleton and nodded. Some of the bones were scattered from the body, but most were where they should be. Rags of hide and leathered meat draped some of the bones. Others were picked clean, some crushed. While the dogs gnawed and chewed on this mystery, I searched around the skeleton for clues as to what it was and how it died. There, hidden under a pile of leaves, was the biggest leg I had ever seen. The long, elegant leg ended in a massive black hoof. The hoof was smeared with dried blood. At the other end was a bony knob. I stood the leg up on its pointy hoof. The knob reached just above my waist. I swung the leg bone this way and that. I swung it in a high arc, like the golfers I had seen on the television once. I swung it like a hockey stick I'd seen the boys on my street use. The weight of it sang. The weight of it, the way it fit just so in the palm of my hand, said, "Yes, I am yours." That night we lay in the little meadow beside our den beneath the tree and watched the stars come out one by one. The puppies lay in an exhausted sleep from our adventure. The older dogs chewed contentedly on prized bones they had brought back from the skeleton. I ran my hand along the leg bone as I stared up at the darkening sky. I thought about the blood on the hoof. What could have killed something that big? I wondered out loud. What is out there in the borderlands? And even though the evening was warm, I shivered. I returned to the skeleton the next day and the day after. The mystery of its story drew me. Who had done this? Who had done this to something so big? The first day I asked the dogs, "Do you think it was a horse? Could it have been the biggest deer in all of Russia?" The dogs didn't care what it had been. They only cared what it was now. A wondrous, stinking hill of bone and hide and stringy muscles. I crawled inside the house, the rib cage made, and curled on my side, fitting just so. The elegant bones arched over and around me. The dogs peered through the bars of bone in puzzlement and concern. Little Mother pawed at the ground and whimpered. Rip pushed his nose through the ribs and licked my face. I laughed. Lucky wagged his tail and dropped to his elbows in an invitation to play. Smoke watched, his eyes locked on mine, and then a voice, that was not really a voice, spoke inside my mind. It said, "This is not right." I gasped. "Smoke, was that you?" He lifted his silver eyebrows. I laughed and clapped my hands. "You talked to me!" A low grumble rattled in his chest. "Come, it is not right." I shivered at the feel of his voice curling like smoke inside my mind. I crawled out from the house of bones and chased through the forest with the dogs. We should be able to do this. It was the next day that I found the head of the animal. Again, we had returned, and again the puppies found the answer. It had been dragged far from the rest of the body and half buried. I dug and pulled and tugged the skull until it finally broke free of the earth. It was not a horse. The head of the animal was as big as a horse's, but antlers spread wide above the crown of the head like bony, featherless wings. The antlers were stained and smeared with the color of rust. Blood. The dogs gathered round this discovery, drinking in its smell. I sniffed it too, trying to read its story. I have never heard of a deer big as a horse, but a horse does not have antlers. Lucky clamped his teeth around the branch of antler and pulled. "No!" I barked. I growled in his face and showed my teeth and shook my leg bone club. "It's mine!" The dogs backed away, their eyes downcast. I placed the skull in my lap. It was heavy despite the emptiness of its eyes. I allowed Smoke to sniff the stains on the antlers. "It fought whatever killed it," I said to Smoke. "It was very brave." Smoke shifted uneasily. He cast a worried look, a look I'd never seen before, around the forest. He trotted over to the trail we had made that led back to our meadow and our tree. He barked a command. The dogs all stopped what they were doing. They looked at Smoke, and then to me. I looked at Smoke. He said, "We must go. Now." Thunder rumbled in the distance. The dogs whined. "It's just a little thunder," I grumbled. Smoke barked again. Okay, I said, "but I'm bringing this." I grabbed the skull by the antlers and dragged it all the way back to our home beneath the tree. I lifted it atop the stump of a long-dead tree, out of reach of the puppies. The empty eyes gazed out into the wild and windy night with its secret. And that's the end of chapter 35. Be careful with that and enjoy, please and thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you for the next installment.